Hello and welcome back to Cine-Mess after a bit of a hiatus. I'm Jess,
I'm India.
and formerly we're known as Cine-Mess Embracing Bad Cinema. So that means a lot of things. I think we cover movies that are objectively bad. We cover other things as well. I mean, I think we're trying to expand that label, right?
Yeah. We don't want to class every film as being bad.
Yeah, I
As we
think
all know, there is no such thing as a bad movie. There's always something that's actually good about it and something you can take from it.
yeah, and
Personally,
I think also like the idea of bad cinema is sometimes audience reactions, issues with production, that kind of thing. And I think that really fits the film we're talking about today.
it certainly does.
Yeah, so as you know, it is Oscars season. Oscars coming up in March, so about just under a month away as of recording, and the nominations came out the other week. We had a little perusal because we thought, as a film podcast, we should cover, one of the Oscar films. And there's one that's really been catching, I would say, audience critics, let's say.
Yeah.
Outside of just the film world, I think the Oscars is one of those places where you kind of get the blend between industry and audience when it comes to reactions to film and to cinema.
Yeah.
As a whole, you get a lot of hot takes.
A blend between business and leisure, basically.
Yeah. So today we're talking about, drum roll please, Emilia Perez. I'm gonna make it clear. I suggested this to India.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're watching this episode or listening, you've probably heard of Emilia Perez. I think our title is gonna be very what's the word, clickbaity in terms of like Oscars flop or like something like that, because there's this whole discussion about this film. So I had watched this film. If you don't know, Emilia Perez is a French film about Mexico, and it follows the story of a lawyer played by Zoe Saldana, um, where she is hired to help a sort of cartel boss transition into a woman, played by Karla Sofía Gascón. And it's a really interesting production. Anyway, so I watched this film not knowing anything about it. I watched it during the Christmas holidays with my mother and my younger brother.
What a festive film.
Yeah, very festive family film. I watched it with them on Netflix because we're a very big movie family. We watch a bunch of films off of Netflix or whatever, what have you, on the holidays. You know that bit between New Year's and Christmas where it's just kind of nothing's open outside. You've got some days off.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we watched Emilia Perez because we are also big musical fans. Big Pitch Perfect house, big everything. We also saw Wicked. So, it felt like a really good film. We saw a musical and we are like, oh, interesting. Let's go watch that. Emilia Perez. And I have suggested it to India to watch for the first time this week.
Yeah.
And I think you've now watched it more times than I have.
I've watched it twice.
Twice.
I've watched it twice, and I actually didn't know. I hadn't heard of this film until it was announced that it's got like 13 nominations.
Yeah, I think it has the most Oscar nominations this year, and I think it's tied for some of the most nominations ever.
That's
for a non-English language film. Yeah. It's actually a huge jump for a non-English film. I don't think there's been many nominated for this many ever. Also for Best Picture.
Yeah.
Normally it's just, I think it's nominated for Best Foreign Film and Best Film as well, which is insane.
Are they allowed to do that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the reason why they add in the foreign category is to allow the chances for that. I do think it sets an interesting precedent going forward, which I'll be excited to talk about later. But I think, first off, I just want to talk about, again, I'm going to assume that if you're listening to this, you have seen the film or you've heard discussion about it. So we're going to skip over some of the background. India, I just want to hear, like, your reaction. Like, how much did you know about this film before watching it?
So I knew nothing about this film, but what I'd sort of heard people like talking about Emilia Perez, and I was like, oh, it's like a documentary then, right?
Yeah,
it's gonna be like a biopic. So I went in with the idea thinking it was a biopic, and I may or may not have Googled, not knowing it was on Netflix. I Googled, who is Emilia Perez, and I was like, what has she been in?
Yeah.
I'm there fully Googling this to then find out I had to go onto Reddit. I clicked a link on Reddit and someone said it was so convincing that the film like came across as like a documentary or a biopic. Like people seem to think that's real. Like people believe it's a documentary or a biopic from how how the media's talking about it and what I've seen on TikTok. And I was like, I'm sorry, it's not. I mean, but I haven't seen a lot on TikTok. Like I just seen. It was just like the Oscar. It was basically Oscar noms, and I was like, "Wow, this documentary's getting a lot." So anyway, when I watched it, I was in for a bit of a surprise. I did not know it was a musical.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that really gets you.
But the musical comes and goes. It's like, oh yeah, we're a musical. We're gonna have like 2 songs,
and then
they
forget about it for a while.
Then half an hour goes by, and you have no idea it's a musical. And then Selena Gomez just starts singing. I'm like, oh okay.
That's the thing as well. When I watched it, I didn't know anything about it either. We just saw like something like crime drama musical, like the tags or whatever on Netflix. And we're like, okay, let's not even read it. Let's like the description that much. Let's just click it. So we didn't even know the storyline about how it follows the transition of Emilia.
Yeah.
So that was like a big plot twist for us, right? So we're like, oh, this is like a crime movie. So I actually quite I didn't know anything about it going in. I don't know about you.
I didn't know anything about it.
Like the plot.
Yeah. Because I was
in.
I was shocked, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my kind of movie. Like I was really invested to the point where I actually watched the film a second time to pick up on anything I'd missed. I hadn't missed much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like. I was like, okay, so she's like a lawyer. She's not happy with her life. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what? Whoa. I'm like, there's like, it's all about like, was it drug cartel in Mexico? And I'm like, whoa, this is.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I think also there's multiple ways to talk about this movie, but I will say this. I really want to like this movie. And I know you're going to disagree with me on this because I know you like it.
Okay. Well, no. I wouldn't say I like. I don't love it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say aspects of the film I like.
I enjoyed watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to like it as a critical piece of work, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't like it as a critical piece of work
because I am very picky when it comes to musicals films.
Or what's considered a musical.
What's considered a musical, and I think actually I was talking to my mom about this today. She described Emilia Pérez in an interesting way. She described it as operatic in its essence.
Wow.
And sort of how like the kind of characters and like the cycle that each character goes through, which I found was quite interesting. I think that made the film make more sense for me because I think I was approaching it more as like a modern musical rather than an opera. But apparently, it is based on an opera libretto of the same name, which is by the writer and director. So he made an opera and then made it into a movie, which explains a lot.
Have people done that before? Yeah.
I don't know, but he based it on a novel. And I don't know how much has made it from the novel to this. So someone else, Boris Razon, wrote the novel called Icute. Again, I'm so sorry, I don't know Spanish, so all my pronunciations of everything are going to be horrific.
No, same.
Razon wrote the novel, or a novel, that then Jacques Audiard, who is the writer and director, he wrote a opera libretto about it, and then that became Emilia Pérez, the film, eventually. And which I think is such an interesting detail that no one's talking about. That it was an opera. Because I think that contextualizes it a lot.
So, yeah, it went from novel to opera.
Yeah, so like a
Hollywood blockbuster.
Yeah. It was like I don't know if it was a performed opera, but he basically wrote.
He wrote
He wrote an opera, which I think is very intriguing, and I would love to see how much changed.
I would love to see if it actually did make it as like a as an opera.
I would
love if there was footage. I'd love to try and find the footage.
I don't think it was performed. I think it was just written.
It was
and then he went the film route.
Highly likely.
But I would love to see how that would change. But anyway, I think now because we're talking more about the context of the film, we have kind of our initial reactions. Well, I guess let's focus a little more on reactions, and then we'll get more into the background of the film. A lot of people were very shocked by this movie, myself included.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the same way you and other people were.
Yeah.
I
I think you knew going in there was something
knew there was something to
to be shocked at.
yeah. Because of everyone talking about it. I was like, there has to be something about this film.
Yeah.
But upon my first watch, I just kind of focused on the musical element of it.
Yeah.
Which I kind of digged and I kind of loved. But upon second watch, I went, ooh, actually, I'm not sure if I like this film much anymore because now I'm reading into it a bit more and there's a lot of stuff I do not agree with.
Yeah.
And then I started to click, this is why people don't like it. This is, and now I don't think it deserves all the Oscars. But we'll get into
We'll get into that. Yeah. I think again, like I said, I went into this film really wanting to like it. I think the first let me just pull up the soundtrack actually, because I did listen to the soundtrack again on the way here today to like warm up for this episode. I really liked the opening with the opening song that Zoe sings. I think it's El Alagueto
Yep.
and Todo y Nada. I think those are the two songs she sings. The first one, if you don't know, it's when she, or if you don't remember, the song where she sings in the courthouse after the case happens. You know, she's writing the speech for the prosecutors, or sorry, the defenders to use in court. And I really like that intro. It really kind of hooked me into the film.
Yeah.
But also at that point, I could tell this was very much a modern musical, which is why I'm kind of surprised about the opera background.
Yeah.
But it does make
seems
sense.
a bit odd now you say that. But
Yeah. So that, and then I think by the time we got to the vaginoplasty song, I was just like, okay, this film is like something else.
So when I got to that point though, I was like, okay, this film is just gonna be like so humorous from now on. But then but it didn't. It was like that was the humor element of it, and then it went away.
Yeah, there were
got
moments
really dark.
there were moments of humor in this. I mean, like you said, the music kind of goes away for a lot of the time and then comes back occasionally.
It's as if they forgot. It was like, oh yeah, we're a musical. We got like 3 songs in like the span of 10 minutes, and then you're not gonna have any for half an hour. We forgot it's a musical. Let's put in another song quickly, and it's kind of awkwardly paced as well. And can we get on to how it sounds so robotic when they try to translate it in English?
The auto-tune as well is...
Oh yeah.
I don't know how to say this, but one of my pet peeves when it comes to movie musicals, especially ones that are a direct to release on streaming services, but other ones as well. This was the same issue I had with Mean Girls. I'm only comparing it as something in the same genre of musical. The sound mixing always stands out to me as it's sort of in post-production something happens where I don't know if it's auto-tune they're using or like pitch correctors or something, but it ends up being this really flat sound. And I think it was at its worst in vaginoplasty, where, you know, the doctor is singing to Zoe's character.
But he's talk singing.
He's it's like all this talk singing. It was the same with the and forgive me for forgetting the actress's name, the main character in Mean Girls the movie musical, where there was just that talk singing point.
I think I've never seen it, but
yeah, and I think it's something that in comparison, Wicked gets a lot of sort of... Wicked's been recognized so much as a successful musical because they've avoided a lot of that. For whatever reason, I don't know what was different about their sound engineering. Maybe it was that they sang live as well and then used that in combination with studio backing. But something's different.
Yeah.
And it's just... I'm mentioning it because it's just one of my real pet peeves when it comes to films like this, where like you said, like I really... The music really drew me in, but listening to it on a deep, like, more than a surface level, or like before getting dragged into the scene, I was like, it kind of took me out of it in some parts.
I kind of wonder. So obviously they used a bit of ADR.
Mm-hmm.
All films do.
Yeah.
But there was something odd just about the sound design in general, not just the singing. Some parts of the movie I felt it was really quiet with dialogue between characters, and other times it was really loud, or you could hear people in the background, but it was too loud to what it should be. Mm-hmm. It should be at a lower volume because you should listen to everything at like mid volume and then work your way down.
It was interesting as well because I was listening to the album on Spotify, so this might be a Spotify specific thing. I don't know otherwise, but the songs by themselves, there's a mixture on this album. There's some of the instrumental snippets that are used as transition points throughout the movie that I think were fine. The composer, I'm so terribly sorry. I cannot remember her name right now. I will look that up while I talk about it. Those pieces are great. Uh, you know, music by Camille and Clement Ducol. The score. So the score was by Ducol. I think those in middle bits, those are fine. There's songs themselves, specifically the Selena Gomez ones. I think they've been recorded in a different way for soundtrack.
Mm.
Those sound perfectly fine on the Spotify, but the ones that are taken from the movie, and you can tell because there's dialogue and stuff, it has that weird sound.
Yeah, there's definitely something up. But also, what I want to say is that Selena Gomez being in this movie, I did not expect.
Yeah, but when she showed up, I was like, "Is that her?"
First of all, I went like Selena Gomez. I went, it's Mabel from Only Murders in the Building. Anyway, so
it's interesting to see her get back to acting. I will say that.
It is. I mean, I love her music. Do I still listen to Wolves? Yes, but I love her music. She's actually a really great actress.
Mm-hmm.
Her facial expression, she expresses so much. And I feel like that's something we lack with a lot of actors nowadays. But she was really great in this movie, and her singing it's always good.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't going to disappoint.
Yeah,
I think it was. I think genuinely she probably was the highlight for me. I mean, I just love her.
yeah. It was an interesting cast for sure. I think talking about the cast and stuff though, I think it's okay if we move away from the narrative for a little bit and come back to that later, because I think something that is getting a lot of discussion right now is the production and cast. First, I want to talk about the background of the film. This was made by French filmmakers, which I was really shocked by when I looked this up or when I heard about it. I think it was a Variety article. So before we get into this more, it was also filmed on studio in France.
Yep.
It was supposed to be shot in Mexico, but then there was like filming clashes or something. So it was filmed, and I think now fact check me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, but I won't say entirely, but mostly filmed in France because I could be wrong.
What it was, if you watch have you seen the making of?
I have not seen the making of.
Okay, you see the making of. They do. They go into how they. It's more of like the music production of it. So you might like that.
Mm-hmm.
You might pick up on what's different. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not knowledgeable in sound engineering, but it was a lot of the cinematography techniques they used, which the cinematography was stellar in this film. I love it. It was really good. It was really great. You can't knock this film for not having great cinematography.
I will say the lighting was beautiful.
Oh, and lighting.
Whoever did the lighting.
Oh yeah. Whoever their lighting designer was, like, lighting is so overlooked in films. You don't think of lighting. Yeah, cinematographer.
You think of it when it's bad.
Oh yeah,
but you don't notice it if it's good.
No. It goes unnoticed a lot, which it shouldn't. But I mean, if you watch it, it goes into how they had to film in France, in Paris.
In Paris.
It was in Paris.
That's expensive.
Because that gets into my quote, but I'll talk about that later.
So it's filmed in City in France, and it debuted, I believe, at Cannes Film Festival in 2024, and it won the Jury Prize and Best Actress Awards for the female ensemble, and I think it was trying for the Palme d'Or.
Wow.
And
not the Palm Dog though.
No, not the
Palm
Dog.
Do that.
I don't think
there is no dog in there. No.
And after apparently standing ovation, but I feel like that's pretty common at Cannes though.
Yeah.
And then there was a huge. Apparently, it was very well received at the festival. Thus ensued sort of the bidding battle, and then Netflix acquired it. I think it was an $8 million deal for UK and US rights.
That surprised me.
That felt
out of Netflix.
Yeah.
Out of all the streaming services, Netflix to acquire it. I mean, yeah, you could say Netflix probably has the more.
Well,
I thought maybe Disney Plus.
It was specifically North America, United Kingdom. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It was originally a bid for $12 million, and then it closed at $8 million.
Okay.
And then it was theatrically released in France August 2024, and then I think released on Netflix November-ish.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date for the US or the UK. That included Canada though, because I watched it in Canada. And then debuted at a series of film festivals over the course of 2024. And I believe it did not release in Mexico until much later. Um, it was screened at the film festival in October 2024, and I think was only publicly released in Mexican theaters in January 2025, 23rd of January, so after the Oscar
Oh.
list was released, which I find very
But it's
surprising.
set in Mexico.
Yeah.
Sorry, filmed in Paris in France, but set in Mexico.
Yes.
So I don't.
So we'll get into more about the critiques from Mexican audiences further on, but let me just ask a quick question. How, sort of, I guess, theoretical, but do you think filmmakers should make films about cultures not their own or based in cultures that aren't their own?
Nope. Because you have no. So that was very quick.
Okay, can you like
No,
expand on
because
that?
you
Yeah.
have to. Yeah, of course. Because you have no. What makes a great film director a great film director is that the story you're trying to tell, you have some kind of correlation to. You have a connection to it. So if we take Joshua Oppenheimer, he did the documentary The Act of Killing, very different to Emilia Perez. But if we take that, he was a well-educated Westerner that went over to Indonesia to talk about the Indonesian massacres and to get them to basically reenact. If you haven't seen The Act of Killing, I recommend you go check it out. It's a great documentary, but its practices are very unethical, and that won an Oscar, and it shouldn't have, because it's not told by someone who actually experienced this, world event.
Yeah.
You don't. Why would you get a French film director or filmmaker to make, to sort of tell a story that's set in another country completely? You don't have any relation to well, actually he might have some relation to it, I don't know, but I feel like you've got to have a connection to the story you're trying to tell, or you can't tell it well. It's
Yeah.
not going to be, and it's not going to be perceived well either.
It's interesting because the writer-director, Adiard, again, apologies for pronunciation, uh, yeah, he's 72. Wow.
Oh.
I thought he was younger.
Well done him.
Well done.
Well.
Yeah, he has won 2 British Academy Film Awards, 3 Golden Globes, 10 Caesar Awards. He's won 4 prizes from the Cannes Film Festival as well. But I don't know if that includes his recent Emilia Perez.
If it doesn't, then well done him. I mean, well done either way, but
Yes.
but
Yeah, I think he's
reputable.
mainly made French films. And
So why step away and make a film based in Mexico?
yeah, he made his first English language film in September 2018. And he's switched to being a director in 1994. Before then, it was mostly writing. It's interesting. Read My Lips, The Beat My Heart Skipped, Australia. Yeah, so an interesting collection. Lots of nominations and awards throughout the years, which is so interesting. So I think he's well known within the French circuit, I would say. But also, aside from the writer-director, a lot of the production team was French. The producers were French. Cinematographer, I don't know about the editor, but I think so. The music, the score and songs, both by French creators. Production companies include Saint Laurent Productions.
Yeah, I noticed.
Which is
that.
very interesting.
I know. I was like, oh. I actually wrote that down. Because also what I noticed, obviously, when it said 2024 Cannes Festival winner,
Yeah.
and we were doing the introduction, you had this really, like, the music was such, like, a horror kind of vibe, and I was watching it in the pitch black in my bedroom, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know whether to be creeped out or not. I know it's music. I'm like, where is this going?
Mm-hmm.
So it did intrigue me at the beginning. The music
Yeah, it
intrigued
is.
me.
I will give them this. It is an intriguing film. I
Yeah.
think making a film, you have to have something to say, and I do think there was a lot.
Yep.
Said.
There has to be opinion in a film.
Yeah. So I will give them that.
Unless your
But-
opinion is to have no opinion in a film.
Yes, but anyway, it just kind of including in this, like, in its industry kind of reception. Sight and Sound included the film in its 50 Best Films of 2024 list as well. Obviously, it's been nominated for several Oscars, not just for music, but for the film as a whole. Best Actress went to, I think, Karla Sofía Gascón,
Okay.
and supporting went to Zoe Saldana, which I was quite surprised by. Because in the
She's
film,
not, I don't think she.
I thought it was the other way.
I wouldn't say she's supporting.
Yeah.
She's the main character.
But it is quite common for films to do this in their campaigns, though, right? To get someone recognized. And I think Garçon is the first nominated openly trans actress or actor to be nominated, which is
Oh wow,
really
that's
shocking.
Good, yeah.
I think there's other.
That's shocking that it's.
There are other actors who have been nominated before. For example, Elliot Page, but at the time, this is like the first nomination when the actress is openly trans, which is interesting to see with the Academy because it's interesting to see. 'Cause I think the Oscars gets a lot of sort of talk about how it's a bit in the past. Do you hear that?
Kind of.
I think you hear that sometimes when it comes to nominations or reception of films, or it doesn't quite align sometimes with what the pop culture moment is. Might be a better way to put it. But anyway, so again, many Oscar nominations, but despite this, you would think a film that's been nominated for so many categories in the Oscars, like 13 is a lot. Like that's impressive. Yet this film has been kind of sort of embroiled in controversy, I would say, since that point. Before then, there was a bit of discussion about this film. But I think when I saw it, it was more along the lines of people talking about, like, oh, this film that's a bit odd on Netflix or whatever. But ever since the Oscar nominations came out, and I've seen the reactions to it, people have been really digging into the background of this film's creation, as well as sort of the response to the story itself, which is interesting. For example, I'm glad I described it as a profoundly retrograde portrayal of a trans woman. And it was panned by Mexican film critics as well for being an inauthentic portrayal. For example, Luis Angel H. Mora talks a lot about sort of the casting in an article that he wrote about the film as well. And sort of supposedly, the casting director stated that there was a lack of Mexican talent, which is why they didn't cast any Mexican actors.
Not even like extras.
I don't know about extras, but for spoken roles, which is very shocking.
When it's a story.
Yeah,
Mexico.
It's sort of surprising. And some of these comments have kind of come back up recently, or been dug up, especially because of the controversy that the actress is facing, which we'll get into later. I know you've probably already heard about it if you're watching this. I don't know if India knows about this though.
I don't.
Yeah, lots of criticism about this film, which is interesting because when it did the film festival circuit, it got the critic reviews were widely very supportive.
I have not seen any of the critic reviews.
I mean, it was selected to compete for the Palme d'Or at Cannes, went through a bunch of film festivals. Critic response, Rotten Tomatoes, it was a 6.8, which, for a movie musical is quite good. Metacritic, 70 out of 100. The Times rated it 5 out of 5 stars, Kevin Maher, saying, this mad musical is one of the year's best films. Time said it was a fierce and glorious film, a radical act of imagination. The New Yorker said this, critiqued it, saying it was a wild ride to nowhere, but still kind of said it was a very exciting film. In other lists, for example, James Cameron praised the film as well. Yeah, lots of directors listed it as their favorite of 2024. There's a bunch. So critic reviews, or industry reviews rather, were widely supportive. But then I think recently there's been more discussion, both from there's been critique about its representation of trans people, as well as Mexican culture.
Yeah, they're the biggest issues.
Yeah. So for example, GLAAD said it was a poor representation. The magazine Them from the US, if you don't know, they're an LGBT magazine. They talk a lot about sort of trans and non-binary representation. honestly, check it out. They have some great articles from some great writers on there. But their editors said it was an idea of transness from sort of the cis imagination, which I think is a really interesting phrase. And I would love to go into that before we get to the idea of the critics from Mexico.
Yeah.
Because my opinion is that potentially part of the reason why this film has been so boosted within the industry is that it is seen as being very progressive.
Yeah.
And it is progressive of you to support a film about a trans character. Does that make sense in terms of, I believe this might be why it's been so, its Oscar campaign has been so strong.
Yeah.
And I don't know. What do you think?
I think the same. I have to be honest. I think the same. It sets it apart from the other candidates at the Oscars. But I completely I do agree that it is told from sort of the cis point of view. If you know what I mean?
Yes.
Right? I feel like surely wouldn't you want your sort of production team to also have some kind of knowledge on the area and I don't know. Then again, I don't know enough about it. So
one thing that I did find interesting was that historically, I think a lot of films by cis people, about trans people, the actor or actress selected to play the character usually is an actor that matches sort of the birth gender of the character. For example, Danish Girl, I think, is one of the most famous ones.
Okay.
Right?
I mean, I've never heard of it.
Eddie Redmayne, he plays...
Yes, I have heard of that. Yeah.
And they selected a male actor to play a trans woman.
Yeah.
Which, this is always like a tricky subject because on one hand, should you have, like, for one hand, okay, trans actors deserve work. But should you force them to portray pre-transition versions of characters? Like, this is an interesting debate. I'm not the person to decide this.
No,
but I think this is a topic of discussion, I think, that is important to have when making movies about trans characters, in terms of what is the ethical way to make films about trans characters.
Or is there an ethical way?
Or is there an ethical way? In this case...
Both sides are valid, but then they're also, In
this case, Gascón is a trans actress, openly trans actress, and she plays Emilia Pérez, which I found that quite unique for such a big film about a trans character, because I think one of the last ones that really kind of made it into kind of general pop culture, I guess cis pop culture, for lack of a better word, was Danish Girl. I think was the most recent one.
Yeah.
Where the film narrative, the film follows the story of the character's transition. And where the trans character is one of the main characters of the film. I think I know there's a few TV shows who've sort of done that, but usually it is a side character or a friend of the main character. You know what I mean? So I thought it was really interesting that they did cast a trans actress.
Yeah. Or unless you've seen Tangerine.
I have seen Tangerine. Yes.
You have.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
But anyway, I found that quite interesting. But again, I don't know what the right answer is.
No, and we can't decide what the...
Yes.
We don't have... It's not our place to say either.
Because, well, in any case, she took the role, and in the film, she overgoes sort of this drastic physical transformation. And apparently they use a lot of physical, like facial prostheses in order to create her look at the beginning of the film.
Prosthetics?
Yeah. So, basically changing her facial features. There was, a wig and all. Because essentially the character at the beginning of the film is sort of a very hyper-masculine cartel boss. And looks the part with sort of tattoos. I think he's got a grill on.
Yeah.
And all sorts. And then later in the film, they sort of remove those facial prosthetics, and that sort of visually shows in the film the result of the surgeries. But anyway, I thought that was just an interesting choice to talk about, because sort of ethically, how do you represent a trans character,
Yeah.
especially when I think there is a difference when it's a trans character is in the film or TV series and it's post transition versus when the film's topic is following a character throughout the period of the transition. I think that is a very tricky topic to cover. And how do you think, from our limited perspectives, how do you think that Emilia Perez sort of handled that?
I don't know. I feel like whatever I say though, I
Yeah.
shouldn't.
It's tricky because I think, for
Because
example,
yeah, okay, go on.
let me bring up one of the songs that is mentioned, or the clips that is used every time this film is mentioned online. If you're on TikTok or YouTube, you've seen it. Is Vaginoplasty
Yeah.
is the one song that's gotten a bunch of attention, and it is essentially Zoe Saldana's character goes on her boss's behalf to visit plastic surgeons to find out about the different procedures for like facial feminization, everything. And literally, I mean, describe your reaction to this song.
I actually thought it, it's just such a change
Yeah.
to the narrative. It's like, okay, quite serious, and then I'm like, hold on, wait, what? Am I like in like some kind of really awful comedy from like the 90s?
Yeah.
Like it was really bad. It's so out of place. You could have done it in a different way. You could have approached that topic in a better way instead of. Also, the fact we're having like the robotic sounding talk singing didn't work either. It was all just a bit of a car crash, and the meaning and the actual the purpose of it got lost.
Because I think before that song,
Mm.
the film sort of had a very dark tone.
Yeah.
There was moments where Saldana's character was clearly fearing for her life. She gets kidnapped by the cartel for the purpose. There's music and songs, but it's very sort of focused on. I don't know, just
Like
the
the
energy is so different.
I described it as being very like grunge.
Yes.
Very like grungy. It's giving me kind of Matrix vibes at the beginning.
There was
right?
choreography, but very sort of.
It was restricted.
Very
movements.
snappy, restricted movements. And then when we get to vaginoplasty, it's a very bright room. Very which could be the point.
But, yeah, I was about to say. Now you say that, it could be like, well, this is
the revelation.
This is like this is sort of the light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I will say what I didn't. I did enjoy moments of choreography in the film. But we'll get back to this at the end. I think last thing I want to talk about in terms of the Oscars campaign is the concept of. I think this is a discussion that happens a lot about who deserves Oscars. And this won't make sense right now, but give me a second. So recently, a journalist from Variety uncovered a bunch of tweets from Karla Sofía Gascón, and they translated these tweets from Spanish into English, usually mostly from the course of 2020 to 2021, and a series of Islamophobic, racist, anti-immigrant, misogynistic, like basically anything you can think of, a bunch of tweets. And yeah, between 2019 and 2024. So up until I think around the time of production. And these have been uncovered recently. And the backlash, I think, is mainly because this film has been marketed as very progressive. But when you have an actor who then is revealed to have these opinions, as of recently as last year, I think that really affects the campaign for award winning. For example, her co-star spoke out about the controversy in an interview and said, "I'm sad. I'm also disappointed. I can't speak for other people's actions and never thought this happened." So clearly shocked about this. I think
So like no one knew about this.
no.
Even during production.
No.
No one decided to do a deep dive.
And then this Variety article came out and it just blew up because
Revealed
I think
everything.
Yes.
She's attacked pretty much nearly every single group.
Yeah. It was quite bad. Let me see.
Therefore, she shouldn't be nominated.
Yeah. that's the debate, okay? Do you think that an actor's actions or opinions should impact whether or not their nomination should stay?
That's really hard because you are judging them on their talent, on their craft. But at the same time, when they've done stuff like this, I don't see a reason why they should stay. I think you forget about the craft because they've verbally attacked people online. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I don't know. It. There's two sides to it. It is quite. It's very tricky, and you're putting yourself in quite an awkward position.
Especially,
You can't pick a side. I don't.
let me put it this way. At this point, I would assume that the winners have been chosen.
Oh, of course. And they've all voted for
What
themselves.
do you do in the case that between the nomination period and the awards that something happens with, let's say, the lead actress, as in the case in this? What do you do?
I feel like they would recall it, wouldn't they? Like, they have to. If this is discovered
Yes.
after the results, they would have to call in for another vote.
Because there's also the case of
Everyone's going to be up in arms about it.
ignoring the lead actress nomination, because I think that's the only one that I think they could debate removing. Because that is solely about Gaston. The rest of the film, the other 12 nominations, so many other people work on a film.
Yeah.
Should the actions of the lead actor or actress, because this has happened for other films before, similar cases, and I assume will happen again, where there is a controversy
always will,
of one of the leads. It's kind of how celebrities work. Like, how should this be approached? Because, for example, should Best Picture be taken away? Should Best Foreign Film be taken away from the consideration because of one of the actors?
No, it shouldn't, but everyone has to put in a certain amount, has to put in a lot of effort into a production. So it would be unfair to take that nomination away from everyone else. But I think what you would do, how you'd go about it would be, it's the production team that got it, not her. You would, disregard, discard her?
It's very interesting because another thing to bring up. So journalist Sarah Huggy found these tweets and translated them off of Twitter, and then they were covered in depth on Variety as well. I believe with her help, and so all these tweets were in Spanish, which might have been why they escaped notice from because the Oscars is very English language leaning.
Yeah.
So this could have been a discussion in sort of the Spanish speaking social media space, but perhaps it's only just broken out into English because of this journalist. But she also, in these series of tweets, talks a lot about Islamophobia. She talks about the George Floyd protests in the U.S. because this is over the course of many years, right?
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years, and she also hit at the Oscars as well, and talks about how more and more the hashtag Oscars are looking like a ceremony for independent and protest films. I don't know if I was watching an Afro-Korean festival, a Black Lives Matter demonstration, or the 8M. Apart from that, an ugly, ugly gala. Which is ironic, because I think her film would be put into that category as something that kind of pushes social norm. And she talks a lot about, the coronavirus, a lot about the Oscars as well. She's since deleted everything and made a statement.
Of course, they all do that.
I feel like, ironically, it might be the comment about the Oscars that gets her dinged and not...
But that's happened in the past, though.
Yeah, I mean,
it has happened before. Even though it should be all of the comments that gets her away from it, but it will be the Oscar comment that...
It's interesting as well because this came off of a previous controversy because she also was talking about how her team was being targeted by campaigns of criticism online, critics of the movie and whatnot. And then these were found, and now she says that Selena Gomez and Zoe Saldana stand behind her 200%. That they like I agree with her, and but it seems like the rest of the team has kind of stepped back in an attempt to save the Oscar campaign. I mean, we read some of Zoe Saldaña's statement. The director, Audiard, he called her behavior hateful.
Mhm.
He's critiqued what she said, and in an interview with Deadline said, "It's very hard for me to think back to the work I did with Karla Sofía, the trust we had. I'm going to continue on. What she said is inexcusable." So it seems like this did go unnoticed.
Yeah.
I think it kind of gets to that question of, again, who deserves an Oscar? Which I think is such a,
No.
yeah, again, at the end of the day,
But what is the Oscar?
what is it?
Like, it's not. Okay, what also would you do with an Oscar? Like, I'm so curious into where people put that. Like, just put it in your living room or
I would.
like. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to look at that.
Really?
I don't know. I don't feel.
Clip this in like 30 years.
Oh no, I don't feel like I. Some people see so where I do understand the Oscars. It's like we are acknowledging people's crafts and honoring them for it. Yeah, I completely get that. But sometimes I don't think. Sometimes people go, I want to make a film because I want to get an Oscar. Or I want to make this film so like different because I want it to get an Oscar. You don't want like why would you? I don't thrive in filmmaking going because I'm gonna win an Oscar one day. No, I'm making it because I'm passionate about making films.
Well, then, how do you feel about I feel like this is a term that's emerged more recently.
Yeah.
The term of Oscar bait.
Oh.
How do you feel about that?
Don't like I
you
don't
think
know
that
a
is the
lot
thing?
about the term.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm also someone who like stays off social media as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Like I only use Instagram to message people. So like I don't know a lot about like explain to me how is it like
I think when a film, I think it's when you get into this debate critically,
yeah.
and I'm not going to make a position at this point because I think I need to study more about it.
Okay.
Is a film actually saying something new or being progressive or breaking the boundaries of film,
Right.
or is it appearing to do so within limits just enough to be seen as award worthy?
Yes.
Or I don't know about award worthy, but critic worthy.
Yeah. We all know like um same with feature films, but with short films, the Oscars love emotional stories, very moving stories for short films
I
because
mean,
it's such a short amount of
biopics
time.
have been huge
yeah,
for a
yeah.
reason.
There are films that have to meet a certain criteria for them to be considered Oscar worthy, like you said. So I don't like it though because I feel like some filmmakers are in that mindset where you've got to have this and you've got to have that, or you won't be considered a good filmmaker, or you know your film won't be considered good enough.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, you're not there to please other people. You and your crew just need to be happy with what you've made. That's all you need.
Well, I guess sort of talking about like the rules of the Oscars. I think
Yeah.
one misconception that I've seen online a lot that I want to clear up is about some of the nominations that have occurred. I think this year is a big year for musical films. I mean, we've got Wicked,
Yeah.
we've got Emilia Perez, Better Man, as well. There is the what is it?
The Bob Dylan biopic.
Yeah, that's the Bob Dylan one.
Yeah.
There's also the documentary for Elton John from Disney Plus. Big year for music. I don't believe they're performing any of the original songs at the ceremony this year. However, I've seen a lot of discourse about the best song category and the score category. I'm not going to talk about the score category because I don't know enough about score making and whatnot. But best song. People have been critiquing it because 2 songs from Emilia Perez have ended up in the category, and then there are 3 other nominees, right?
Okay.
So I believe El Mal from Emilia Perez is. Sorry, let me look this up real quick. I did have it pulled up ahead of me. Best Oscar.
Because I felt the songs at the beginning were stronger.
Yes.
And then as the film progressed, they just got weaker and weaker.
I will say though that is common with musicals.
It is. I mean, it's common with Tick Tick Boom. I watched that fairly recently, but then I also feel like the story was trying to the pacing changed, the pacing switched. It was well paced at the beginning, and then as the film went on, it got too quick for the
Once
narrative.
the time skip happens, then it...
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, El Mal, which you might know, if you don't know the name of the song, it is a scene at the fundraiser gala where Zoe Saldana is dancing on tables and Karla Sofía Gascón is at the podium singing.
Mhm.
I actually thought this was one of the stronger songs, but I'll get back to that in a sec. So there was that, and then Mi Camino, which is the solo by Selena Gomez.
Yeah.
And other than that, there's Like a Bird from Sing Sing of A24. There is The Journey from the 6888, another Netflix feature. Netflix is dominating musicals.
I haven't seen that.
And then there is Never Too Late, Elton John. From Never Too Late, Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting year. So 2 out of 5 are Emilia Pérez songs. And I've seen people attack this because a lot of people complain, where's Wicked? I'm here to tell you all, for the best song category, it needs to be a song created for the film. It has to be a new thing. So with movie musicals that are adapted from stage versions, there's a reason why a lot of them include a new song. Because they're not eligible for these awards. Because it was written, for example, all the Wicked songs, it's also based off of songwriting, not who performs it. So we're not saying, oh, Selena Gomez deserves her song Oscar.
Yeah.
No, it is the songwriters. Anyway, and it has to be the version used in the film. It can't be an extended cut, new recording.
That makes sense.
So just establishing that. So that's why films like Wicked, which are very sort of musical heavy, or for example, the Bob Dylan biopic, they can't get in this category.
No, but that's fair though.
Yeah, which is fair.
Because you just have the same people, like the same songs
Which I think it's a good rule, but I think people aren't aware of this, which is why a lot of the criticism has gotten into this. So anyway, and each film can only nominate 2 songs for this category. And then they're voted on which ones get in.
Okay.
Hot take, I think El Mal deserves to be in the best song list. But I do not, from Emilia Pérez, like out of all the songs.
Yeah.
However, I think the Selena Gomez one does not.
No, I think Selena Gomez one does.
I like it. However, from a songwriting perspective, not the performer.
Yeah.
I do not like the sound mixing.
Okay.
Because it does not fit the vibe of the rest of the film. The synth is a lot heavier. The instrument it becomes very poppy.
Yeah. You have a good that's her
Which is, I know that
you have a good point.
I know that is her energy, but I looked at comments by the in the Los Angeles Times, Ducole, the songwriter, and Camille, the composer, were saying that they wrote the song for her, versus the other songs were written for the movie, if that makes sense. Which is why I think it feels so off.
So that's
I get why they nominated for this category. However, within the context of the film, I do not think it deserves best song.
Okay. No, I completely agree.
See?
For once.
So this is
I do agree.
This is the comment. This is like why I feel like I needed to explain the rules for best
before
song.
I jumped in and thought I was
And also to save all the Wicked fans. Okay, there's a reason why Wicked didn't get in this category. It's
I haven't
not.
seen it,
It's not anti-Wicked propaganda. It's literally just the rules. Sorry, I've just seen so many TikToks about this, and every time I've been so irritated because I'm like, it's okay to have criticism, but be right about where your criticism is coming from.
That is so true. And also, you a problem with sort of our generation is that people don't actually listen to the facts first and then build your opinion.
For example, like I listened to all of the best song nominations.
Okay.
Because I wanted to.
I don't know why I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow.
Because I just wanted to have a basis of comparison because I don't want to say, oh, the Emilia Pérez nominations are trash. And like I didn't actually say that. I'm just saying, for example, oh, the Emilia Pérez ones are trash, like compared to the other ones. And I haven't even listened to the other ones. Like that's a crazy opinion. You know what I mean? So I did listen to the other ones, and I do think they have a chance.
Yeah.
I don't think they will win over, I mean, Elton John has a long history of Oscar wins. However, hot take, I actually want Like a Bird from Sing Sing to win.
Okay. I haven't heard it.
It's a really good sort of jazzy, soulful ballad.
Oh.
I haven't watched the film, but it's made me want to watch the film now.
I've been into a lot of jazz music recently. I might like that.
There was that one. So that one was the music and lyrics by Abraham Alexander and Adrian Caseta. And then The Journey in the 688, I think it was a credits-only song.
Okay.
So I don't know how I feel about that for best songwriting.
Yeah, because I
It's-
get what you mean. It doesn't actually take place in the movie though, does it? 'Cause
But
it's
anyway,
all credits, but
that's kind of my rant for it. But I kind of want to wrap up talking about this controversial film, I guess I'll say. Did you have a favorite song?
I did. But you've actually already said it.
Yeah?
And I'm gonna butcher it. And I'm very sorry, but it's El Alligato.
Mine was the same.
I knew it. I thought it would be. It's the best song in the
The
film.
choreo
It-
is amazing.
I was watching it and then I'd skip back and I was like I was like, you know when you're like, I don't know, it could just be me and I'm very weird, but when I watch a musical, I'm like sat watching it and I'm like imagining I'm doing the choreography
Yeah.
as well. I was getting really into
God,
it.
it's like watching like that scene and things like that is when I always wish I could dance.
Right?
You know?
Or, I just wish I actually had any
And that's what
acting ability and could be in musical
that's when I
theatre.
know it's good choreo. I'm like, God, that looks so
Yeah.
cool. Like,
I tell you what, the choreography was so great for this because it fit the vibe.
yes,
It weren't
very snappy
poppy.
movements. It was,
It was quite robotic in some places. The same with the talk singing.
but it fit the thing. I will say, I think the composer did a good job
yeah.
at making a cohesive piece.
Yeah.
My critique is mostly with songwriting.
I just didn't like it when they translated it into English. I didn't see the
Yeah.
reason in that. We have to.
I would love for those of you listening, please go and visit articles or reviews by people who do speak Spanish because I've seen some incredible takes about the use of Spanish in the film because it had to be translated
Yeah.
for the writer and director and the songwriters because it was a French team. So please look for someone more qualified than us to talk about that. I didn't want to talk about it today because I felt like two of us, we both don't
We
speak
don't know
Spanish.
any. Yeah, we don't speak. So why would
I feel like we are unqualified and it would be really like we'd be hypocrites
Yeah,
to
of
critique
course we
the
would, yeah.
Spanish in the film.
Yeah.
So please go check out some work by actual like Spanish writers. For example, I know Louis Angel H. Mora on Infobay did a really good article talking about the casting director's comments. Look at some of the articles on Variety. They have some really great translators working on there. Anyway, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing work there. So I think we'll leave it at that.
Well, yeah, we'll leave it. We'll leave it.
We'll leave it
here.
at that. Normally, I think we would do a letterbox review, but I think
Yeah.
that doesn't really fit the vibe for today's one.
It doesn't. It's quite serious. Like we've tackled serious topics that this film brings up.
But I think this was an interesting discussion to have, sort of leading into the Oscar season. So, in the comments, let us know. Did you watch Emilia Pérez? Did you like it? Any questions on your end?
Were you shocked by it, like I was?
Yes.
Did you go into going into the film thinking it was a biopic or a documentary?
Yeah.
Genuinely, you do not know the shock I was in when I watched it. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Am I watching the wrong film? I had to double check. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
But it did intrigue me to go and watch the making.
Yeah,
of.
and I guess, like, what's your opinion about, I guess, anything we talked about today? Again, anyway, that's the nature of Cine-Mess, embracing bad cinema. We're not necessarily saying a film is bad.
Well, I
but-
believe no film is bad, but we're just.
I don't agree with that, but
Okay.
anyway.
You never normally do agree with
Yeah,
me.
I think vice versa as well.
Yeah.
But we like talking about sort of the mess around filmmaking and sort of these kind of debates. So we'd love to hear your opinions as well, because we're not saying that our opinions are right.
No, we're not.
We're just saying that we have them.
Yeah.
So
Everyone has an opinion.
yeah. So thank you so much for listening. I've been Jess.
I've been India.
And check out Cine-Mess podcast on any platform, really. YouTube.
Spotify.
And what are we going to be doing on YouTube now?
We're gonna be doing little short episodes where we cover short films.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite. I prefer short films to feature length films. I know, kind of a hot take. People don't appreciate short films enough. But when you listen to these episodes, which I'm sure you will, you will start to appreciate short films for the beauty they
So
are.
please check us out, Cine-Mess on Spotify and
Spotify, YouTube.
Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Yep. I don't do social media really.
Yes,
So.
American friends, you have a couple more days to follow us on TikTok, so please check us out there. And see you next time.
Goodbye.
For watching the latest episode of Cine-Mess.
We hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to go and follow us on our socials, our Instagram is,
At Cine-Mess Podcast.
our TikTok is.
At Cine-Mess Podcast.
Do we have any other social media?
At the moment, no, we don't. Maybe we'll hop on Blue Sky or something.
Maybe. And we'll have a website at some point.
At some point.
At some point.
But
But
anyway,
if you don't follow us on any of those platforms,
you're a
go
loser.
do it.
Follow us.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You've watched all the way to the end. You're still watching right now to this very second, and you haven't followed us at all anywhere else?
Okay,
That's boring.
slightly threatening. I'm very
Okay, sorry. I won't be threatening. Please be nice and follow us on our socials for updates on episodes and to send us recommendations of different films to cover.
Yeah,
We do lots of fun stuff.
we do. And we cover a lot of different weird films. So
Yeah, and we have.
don't be scared to send in an odd weird film.
Yeah, don't
we
be
will
scared.
we will maybe review
Please don't
it.
be scared.
No, please don't. Well, maybe after this you might be scared.
Okay, but also we have content on TikTok, for example, that is exclusive to TikTok. So check us out over there. We do some great things. We do a lot of There was a brief period where we did a lot of audio impressions.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, we'll leave it there because this is a very long outro now.
All right. Bye.
Bye.